Hi there and welcome along to the latest England Golf podcast. Ian McFarlane here as usual, thanks for joining me. Another busy podcast with 3 cracking guests for you to hopefully enjoy over the next hour or so. We hear from the new national men's coach Rob Watts as he takes over the role from Graham Walker and targets more success for the England team. Stephen Jensen, one of the world's leading seniors, tells us about his season, a never to be forgotten trip to America and the prospect of playing for Europe in the Concession Cup next month. And I also dropped in Rosemary Reed for a cup of tea and a blether about her golfing life. Rosemary made headlines earlier this month when she won the Central England Mixed Foursome title at the age of 87, just 65 years after she first played in the tournament. We'll also take a trip around the England Golf newsroom, but first, let's hear from Rob. Rob Watts is one of the game's smartest and sharpest coaches and has helped Darren Clarke to an Open Championship win and sustained success on both the regular and the Champions Tour. Rob draws inspiration from conversations with All Blacks rugby legend Sean Fitzpatrick, and as England boys coach, he steered the team to 6 consecutive home international titles and helped the lads take their first medal at the Euros earlier this summer in 15 years. Now he's stepped up to take control of the men's squad, and with a passion for the game, his country and his profession, it promises to be an exciting few years ahead. Rob, good to see you. You're the new national men's coach for England Golf, which I know is a great honour for you to succeed Graham Walker. Can I just get your thoughts on getting that job, first of all?
Yeah, I'm obviously very, very excited and honoured to get the position. Obviously following in great footsteps with Graham. Been a great friend of mine, obviously as a colleague. He's basically set the tone of how England Golf, from a coaching standpoint, what we should do, how should we coach it, what elements are important. Obviously, along with Nigel, our 5 pillars, they've driven that from the moment I was involved with England Golf at regional level. So, and Graham, a very, very focused man. Winning is vital and massively important to him, which is sort of in every vein in his body, which feeds down to the rest of the members of the staff, the coaching staff, the performance management side and everything.
I don't know if you'll agree with this assessment, but it's a bit like taking the microphone from Sinatra, isn't it? I mean, he's had quite a career and
Yeah,
still going to have a great career, but
yeah,
you're having to follow in his footsteps.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at Graham's career, it just keeps getting better. I mean, he's worked with Tommy, Danny Willett before that, and all those players, and won gold medals with England. I think the art of his coaching abilities to obviously everyone that steps foot in his office to say it gets better. So what a great achievement he's done, and I've got big shoes to fill.
Yeah. In terms of pride in taking on an England job, I know you're a proud Englishman. I know from how you work with squads and stuff like that, you really try and G them up for team events.
I
do. Is it difficult to separate the pride and passion for our country and try and be a focused coach and take that into what you teach the boys and now the men, because you don't want them to get too excited, you don't want them to be too pumped up, but you also want to have that inner belief and pride in what they're doing?
Yeah, I think, first of all, we're all very fortunate to be involved with playing a sport for your country. And I think one of the things I try and install with them is when they arrive, they're responsible for the mood in the room, they're responsible for the energy they bring, and everyone gets better together. I think, obviously, England squads, you get your stellar players, but the stellar players get better because they see the people that are close with them. So that's one thing I am passionate about. A lot of flags, a lot of passion around watching a lot of other sports that England are involved in. I think it's the biggest honour. And obviously we've just witnessed one of the most amazing things with the Queen, the way the nation got together. And England, Scotland, and all Wales and Northern Ireland, the whole way GB and I got together was quite thought-provoking for me. I watched the whole thing, and again, looking at it, I think the importance of why do we do things the right way? We need, standards are important.
Standards are important in golf, and sometimes individual players who have their own foibles and maybe get a bit complacent and maybe a bit arrogant and things like that. That's just human nature. But in a team environment, you can't really have that. Is that something you're quite strong?
Yeah, I'd just step on that immediately. I think whatever they're doing, is that good for the team? We're going to get our certain types of player that do things their way, but when we all get together, we've got to follow a system of some sort. And that's, things that you saw this morning about the team warm up. That's to me vitally important to create the right atmosphere and energy within the group. And also when players arrive, we've got our cultural architects that have been in the system. They bring forward the younger players, and the younger players then, their expectations are that, and they take over the mantle. And I think if you look at any great teams, whether it's Sir Alex Ferguson's team or Jurgen Klopp's now, Pep Guardiola, those type of people, the All Blacks, they have a culture. And I think that's one thing that I will admit, it takes a while. You first get in, and you've got to get 2 or 3 lieutenants with you to pick up that momentum. And I feel that's been happening over the last few years.
It's one thing, isn't it, being part of an England team? It's another thing being part of Team England. They're two distinct things.
Absolutely. Yeah, that culture, I think, again, where the likes of Graham and Robbo at the top of the tree have brought that forward. And I do think the one thing I do say about when the teams come in, there's an expectation. I think England as a nation with the game of golf have produced many great players and great champions over time. Apart from the USA, you could argue, are we the number 2 nation? We need to keep to being number 2 nation. I haven't got the evidence right in front of me now, but I'm sort of thinking aloud here. But yeah, that momentum, we've got to keep that going.
You've been on a journey with the boys squad for the last 5 or 6 years before you now step up to take on the men's role. How much have you enjoyed working with the boys? Because there's been a lot of success in that team.
Loved it. Absolutely loved it. I think part of that as well, I've got 4 children myself, and I see the vulnerability of a young person, young player. I think most of the teams at time to time, you're seeing tears come out, and the stresses of having to perform, and then management of the player, mum and dad, other coaches has been vital. And obviously you learn on the job with that. But they're young boys that want to get better, and they're hungry to get better, and they're going through these big hormonal changes in their life. And the management of all that has to be, spot on. You have to get it right. Otherwise, they're not going to perform for you, and B, that they can fall away and get loose in their focus.
Yeah. During your time with the boys squad, won the home internationals 6 years, I think, in a row. If my stats are right, you'll correct me on that, I'm sure. Yeah. Is there a highlight from your time with the boys squad? Maybe the silver in the Europeans, the pinnacle, or is there something else you would pick out?
I think the first year I started, I had a squad that were some great players in that squad, and we had some moments of behaviour problems, I would say. They were being boys, and I found it tough. I found it tough getting everyone to do the right thing. I was always looking over my shoulder, doing stuff possibly you wouldn't think you had to do as a coach, but you learn and you have to. And they're not bad people. They were just it was a bit naughty at times, and they went on home internationals, and that to me was that win with that team. The feeling I had with that was amazing, just to win the home internationals, because you don't know how long you're going to be in a role. You're fortunate to be in the role, and you do your best, and you try and you work as hard as you can, right? So that momentum, then I understood there was things and elements I took out of that, and then those players went on and went on to play some Walker Cups and things, and one of the boys has gone on to further things, is out on tour now. So that was a squad that set me the tone of how to behave and what I should be doing and what I should be looking for players. And then I couldn't stand out a squad from there. I think we did have a squad where we had 3 in the top 10 in the world rankings, and top 3 players in Europe, men's, that were boys, which was, the Connor Goff, Ben Schmidt, Joe Pagden era, and then obviously Barkley Brown. So the momentum picked up, and I would say, I think that team we were unfortunate to lose a quarterfinal at Europeans. That still pains me, and it pains them. They know that team were good enough to go on and be, I think, world champions, but we didn't do that. So I learned the pain of that.
You've been in golf all your life, all your adult life. Presumably you didn't set off to become a coach. You had ambitions individually to reach as high as you could possibly go. Yeah. So when did the transformation come from Rob Watts potentially seeing himself as a golfer?
I think everyone goes into the game and you want to be a player, and I think as you get older and you get wiser, you hope to get wiser quicker. And probably it took me 3 or 4 years later to get wiser. I realised I was never going to be good enough to, get to the top parts of the game. And then in my 30s, I had my first child. And at that moment, I realised I had to focus on the game in a different way, and that sent me into coaching. And I got very fortunate. I had an injury that plagued the back end of my playing days, and that then I went into biomechanics and looked at other things. I took an exam in America, a guy called Paul Check, and looked at biomechanics and postural imbalances and things like that. And that kind of set my sort of flavour of how I was going to coach from there. And then I got very fortunate early. I had some players on tour that I worked with, got me out on the road, watched, and certain players were doing very well, and I was fortunate to be in that coaching team, and that kind of then grounded me I learned a lot. You learn from the best, don't you? You always learn from the best coaches and best players. That's where you learn your best stuff.
How would you describe yourself as a coach?
I would say I'm very thorough on doing the basics as well as you possibly can. I'm trying to go right down the layers of the onion to find out the reason why it's producing the end result, and then working out with that player where they're willing to go to seek to make that change. And that's our baseline, or where we start from. So it could be having that open conversation, and then from a coaching standpoint, whether you've got a player that isn't willing to quite go right down to the root of the problem. So therefore you start at where they're willing to, and then you've got to make best from that point. That would be my coaching philosophy.
Was that drawn from somebody else that you worked with, or is it something that you just developed as an individual yourself?
I think that's learning from other coaches, watch them coach. But then I think as I learn, as soon as you try and put a paint on a crack, the crack comes again, and you can keep painting over the crack and paint over the crack, but the cracking is not going. So that's kind of how I learned from that. And you also work with players as well. And you some days you're doing patchwork on Wednesdays before tour events. The Wednesday is a patchwork lesson. But I think the boys, when they come in at 14, 15, fundamentally, you have to step in and make those fundamental, because that's almost the point of the journey where they're going to start to make more deeper habits.
As a coach, I'm curious to know how you deal with people who are different sizes, different shapes, different physiques, different strengths, because there isn't a one size fits all in golf coaching. So how difficult is it coaching people that you coach and continues to coach? You've coached, say, a Ben Schmidt, different style of golfer, to a Darren Clark, who you coach and you've coached for many years. So are the fundamentals the same, and it's just the mechanics around it?
The system's the same. And you said the word one size fits all, and it's right, but there's one size that fits that player, and you've got to find that's what that size is right from the get-go, from the conversations you have with them, and also listening and where they're wanting to improve. And then you've got to be in front of them, but not too far in front, to understand, well, what are we doing right here to make you better? What parts of the game do you feel are going to unlock performance at the top? So whether that is strengthening the player in a certain aspect of their developing their super strength to make that even more powerful, and then working on their unacceptable weakness, then so be it. You've got to have those conversations. I don't think you can go in and go, this is what you should do. I think those are conversations you have with players. So, and a lot of listening. I always think if you listen to the player, watch them, watch their behaviours, then you get a bigger insight of what you can do from a coaching perspective, or you've got to coach them into changing behaviours. Sure. So the dynamics of coaching are massive.
Yeah. No, it does interest me. One player I mentioned was Darren Clark, who you've worked with for a number of years, and not many people, Rob, have coached an Open Champions. So hats off to you for being involved in Darren's journey at that point. How did you start off with Darren, and what's the relationship been like, and how's it developed over the years? Yeah, so
I've been in and out with Darren for 13 years. I've been there for him when he needs me. I mean, Darren's seen a lot of coaches, so everyone in the industry knows that. He's worked with a lot of coaches because he's driven to get better. He's one of the most driven human beings I've ever met in my life. How I got fortunate to have time with Darren was Keith Maxwell was the head professional at Sunningdale, and I had a biomechanics room in just short of London, a place called Uxbridge, that I'd work from 6 a.m. till 9 a.m. and then went back to Castle Royal. Then I'd go back there in the evening to do biomechanics, and I was fortunate to get some players who were trending towards being tour players, and some of those went on and did well, and that's kind of how I got into the industry. And Keith Maxwell from Sunningdale, who's a golf professional, came for a session, and he had his session, and a few months went by, and he said, I want you to speak to Darren about some things. And there was a system I was using called heart math, which was measuring the mathematics of the heart and how that influenced your breathing, and breathing influences the physiology, and going on from there. So I had a meeting with it. I can remember sitting in his house. I'd say close to terrified is probably a strong word, but I was nervous, put it that way. And he came in and he has a presence, like a huge presence. Anyway, I wired him up to think heart math, just talk to him, and he really liked it. And he went to me, I want you to come and watch me hit balls. And I sort of pinched myself. So I went to Queenwood, which is, for those who know, Queenwood is as good as it gets in the UK in terms of facility to be standing on, let alone coach on, and hit balls. And I thought, this is my chance. And he said to me, what do I think? And I said to him, I think you set up like a 5 handicapper, which I couldn't believe I said.
Yes, that's a brave move.
But then that then built into the relationship. And then 3 months later, he went on and won the BMW Asian Open. And then that started that journey. And that year, it was Nick Fowler. So Nick Fowler was the Ryder Cup captain. And Darren nearly made that team. He got to 13th from, obviously, he had a very tough time with his wife, Heather, passing away. And you had young boys. So again, from a relationship, I met the boys when they were young, and Darren, I'd be to the house and we'd discuss a lot of things. And the relationship grew, not just about club and ball stuff. It was about coaching. To now, I'd say we probably moved through we spoke last night. So he sent me a video last night of his golf swing, and we know, he's worked with some phenomenal coaches, Pete Cowan being one of them. He's worked with, he's going to seek who he can to make him the best he can possibly be.
Yeah. Before we get back to the England stuff, just to touch on Darren again, because he won the Open at St George's. I was privileged enough to be there and work there.
Yeah.
And it was a great week. And it was also a great press conference he did after it the next morning. I think he arrived with a pint of Guinness, which perhaps summed up the celebrations.
And
what a victory.
It was amazing, yeah. And obviously there, I walked the last 3 holes with mum and dad and wife, watching it unfold. And I can remember he always said that the one thing he wanted to do was win the Open. And he had the party after, and it's a bit surreal walking up the fairway, watching what happened and unfolding. And then, he achieved that goal of his. And I think he would say as well, he's from that moment, he then had to sort of reinvent himself a little bit and keep working hard to get back to it. Because I think when you win a major, you've got to start again and go again. And like we've just seen again, he's gone and won the seniors. So there's very few players have gone on and won the seniors and the Open. So I was with him for 3 days. He worked a lot with Pete as well. Pete Cowan was there working with him, and I was with him at the Open. So in the mornings we'd go out and do 18 holes on the course, looking at bits and bobs we were working on, and there we went. We went off to won the seniors Open. So yeah, I think you do. I think all coaches would say that you learn from your players as much as you give them knowledge as well. I think we all feed off each other. So that's what shapes your sort of beliefs and coaching strategy.
As well as learning from players, and you've coached many players and continues to coach players on tours, European tours, ladies European tours, champions tours, etc. I'm curious about what you draw from other sports, and I know that Sean Fitzpatrick, the All Blacks captain, is somebody that you hold in the highest regard for the way he approached his career and how he achieved what he achieved. Specifically, what is it that you as a golf coach can draw from an All Black?
It was, their belief system, that what was important when the All Blacks is the most important thing in their life. So when they are in that team room, he was talking to me about how family almost comes underneath an All Black, which if you think of the concept of that is pretty crazy, but that's why they're the All Blacks. So listening to that and listening what what they do, and their whole the haka and how they go about it, and the importance of every single detail, and whatever they're doing is done to the absolute ultimate. And that's something that I don't think many squads or teams have ever managed to get to that level, because the culture, the moment you are from New Zealand, it's in your blood, isn't it? And if you become an All Black, that's the expectation. And so that was something that I found amazing to listen to. And again, in a room, he's got a massive presence, Sean. You just want to get better if you're near him.
It's almost getting back to how we started this conversation about pride and playing for your country, and how you can use that, but in a calm and controlled measure, to then produce the best results. Because the All Blacks are a prime example of, a sports team that want to do well for their family, for their country. Yeah. But they have to do it in a professional way that works on the pitch.
Yeah, they do. And like I said, I think there's training phases. I think obviously our coaching in the winter gives us an opportunity to really stretch the player and develop the player, so that you wouldn't necessarily see a performance early in that obviously 3 to 4 months, but you're obviously working towards the get-go in the start of the season, the April time. They might have gone on and play Portuguese AM or Spanish AM, but your first point of contact, and generally in the boys' squad, you generally get 2 years. I think my role, I'm getting paid to develop these players. So the first point of contact is I've got to get in and find out, is this player going to be able to go and win on a world stage? Not on I think that's the ultimate thing we've got to look to. I think everyone in the system, and obviously Nigel, very focused about everything he does, and that filters down as well. We've just all got to get better.
As you come into the role as national men's coach, how do you assess the strength of amateur golf in England at the moment?
We are in a transitional period, I think, where we're getting a lot more younger players that are coming through. And I think obviously the ladies program has seen that over the last, I'd say probably 5 years to a decade. I think right now the sport is changing. The first time ever we've got 4 major champions that are in their 20s. I think it's getting younger. They're getting stronger earlier. Their ball speeds and club head data now is matching stuff you see out on the tour, which is unusual. I certainly wouldn't have seen that in my first couple of years with the boys squad. But now the 6 boys that played Europeans are ready to play men's, and clearly have proved that in men's golf last year. And obviously talking about the Ben Schmidt and Conor Goffs and Joe Pagdens and Barclays that have gone on and done very well as well. So they're ready. It doesn't surprise me when they do well in men's golf. And I think we're going to see a lot of players that probably may turn pro earlier. I think when they get into the men's squad, there could potentially be, I might only get 1 to 2 years with that player. And I've got to give them the best chance of going on to making a strong career in the game.
It's exciting though to be a part of that, to be a part of these young men's
a massive privilege, but at the same time responsibility that I'm fully aware of, and I need to obviously keep developing myself and learning, because that's how that you have to keep developing. You can't stand still, because people just go by you, as we know in any industry.
Good stuff, Rob. Nice to talk to you. All the best with the job. As I say, taking the microphone from Sinatra. Old Graham Walker there. But
I'm looking forward to it. But I'm obviously looking forward as well to Benny Graham's ear from time to time.
I'm sure it'll help you. All the best, Rob.
Thank you. Cheers.
Great stuff there from Rob, and good luck to him as he follows in the footsteps of Graham Walker and hopefully drives England on to future success. Now, Steve Jensen kicked off the 2022 season with victory at the inaugural English Senior Men's Amateur at the Leicestershire. Later in the year, Stephen represented England at the Home Internationals, and perhaps most remarkable of all, reached the last 8 of the US Senior Amateur Championship, which was uncharted waters for an English golfer. Next up for Stephen and 2 of his senior England colleagues is the Concession Cup against America at Valderrama, an event supported by Jack Nicklaus and which takes its name from the sporting encounter involving the Golden Bear and Tony Jacklin at the Ryder Cup in 1969. I caught up with Stephen recently to hear about his season and discovered how golf has not only been a lifetime hobby, but changed the course of his career thanks to a chance conversation on a golf course.
Stephen, great to see you again. Thanks for joining us on the podcast. It's been a busy old year for senior golf. So let's start at the beginning with the English Senior Men's Amateur at the Leicestershire, which was the first event, the inaugural staging of this event, and you only went and won it. What's your recollections of that week at the Leicestershire?
Well, I have very fond memories. I had just come from the West of England seniors, where I'd managed to win that, so I was on reasonable form. But I think obviously you were there. The course was set up beautifully, but we had a very dry and cold spring, so it was early season, and it was playing a bit bumpy, and we had strong winds, so it was very testing conditions. I panicked a bit towards the second round of the qualifying, thinking, oh my goodness me, I'm dropping shots like you wouldn't believe, but managed to fall over the line and make the last 32. and had some fantastic match play games on the way to the final. And the final itself was awesome. Even I said myself, it was quite fitting. It was a great example, I think, for seniors golf. We had tremendous support from the members of the Leicestershire who came out in their droves to watch us. And the final hole, I don't think it gets any more exciting than that, where Andrew Smith, being one down on the final green, canned a 40-foot birdie putt. And I'm left there in a 30-mile-an-hour wind thinking, well, my 25-foot has either got to go in or I'm going down the first. And luckily for me, it dropped in. So it was very exciting. I loved it.
It was a great finish. I mean, that was the first championship that we covered this year. And it was probably the most exciting because that was a dramatic ending. It was made for TV.
It was indeed, yeah. I mean, it's high quality golf. I mean, we both played very, very well, I think throughout the 18 holes. And I just managed to marginally pip him at the last, which he still reminds me that, he was disappointed that my putt dropped after what he'd done. Yeah, it was wonderful. I was really pleased. And early in the season, it carried a lot of order of merit ranking points, which was great. So I knew early in the season that I was almost achieving target number one, which was trying to get back into the England squad. It also offered quite a few WAGA points, which is something maybe we could talk about later, but they're becoming more and more relevant now across sort of elite golf as such, particularly the seniors, to get exemption from certain tournaments in Europe and elsewhere. So that was great. So it was a nice start to the season, I must say.
It was a great way to begin a very busy year, as I mentioned in our introduction. Can you just give us a flavour again about how hectic a schedule can be for seniors golfers? Somebody like yourself who's very competitive, wants to play all across the UK, all across Europe, all across the world. So just give us an idea of how much golf you've played this year and just some of the venues you've been to.
Oh, I've played a colossal amount of golf. I mean, as from sort of covering elite golf, the tournaments do tend to fall in the obvious months. So, you pile a lot into June, July, early August, and then it's relatively benign thereafter and slightly benign before. So you're looking at playing almost, if you want to, every single week for 10 weeks, which is not sustainable. People of any age, particularly at our age, that's just too much golf, too much travel, and it's a bit of expense as well. But I think of the 12 qualifying events, I probably played 8. I probably played as many as most people. Travelling over to Ireland to play in the Irish seniors. I didn't play the Welsh, up to Scotland twice, because the British was up there as well. So there's, I covered quite a few miles throughout that sort of 10-week period, if you like. And then latterly, a few trips to America, which is also very exciting.
What is it about the seniors circuit, Stephen? One thing from covering it the last few years that I discovered, not only is the camaraderie great, but the level of competition is also very intense. There may be this perception on the outside that it's seniors golf and it's all very chummy, and it is. There's great friendships there, but boy, you guys like beating each other, don't you?
Well, I went into seniors golf sort of almost 18 months ago with not a dissimilar opinion of how it was going to be, and I got a rude awakening because you have to consider that a lot of these people have been playing junior international golf. They've got England caps. They play county golf. Many of them still play county A-team golf, let alone for seniors golf. So at the slightly higher level, there's a huge number of people there who are extremely competitive week in, week out. And even when I mentioned that I wasn't playing all the events, every single event that's on the rota is oversubscribed, with in many cases cuts which are 1-2 handicap, many plus handicappers. So the standard is extremely high. And at the same time, you're meeting like-minded people. You're meeting people who are just about to retire, who've worked hard to get to where they want to be, who still love the game of golf. We share the same ethics. So, you're bumping into people that you've got so much in common with all the time. And as you said, yes, there's great camaraderie, great friendships, and it's an awful lot of fun.
You also mentioned briefly there your trip to America, which proved extremely successful. I was extremely jealous when I heard about it, first of all, because you played some fabulous courses during your time out there.
Yeah.
But just in particular, the US Senior Amateur, the Kitanset Club, is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah.
Because that really was a kind of landmark achievement for you. You had a great run in that event. Just tell us about that. First of all, why you wanted to take part in it, how you were able to take part in it, and just the success you enjoyed that week.
Okay, well, I touched on earlier about the WAGA ranking points. The top 25 WAGA ranked seniors are exempt from qualifying for the US Senior Amateur. Apart from having to go over there and try and pre-qualify, there's no other way in. Obviously, you can win the British, but that's another way in. So that was something that I discussed with a couple of the England guys at the beginning of the season. Is that a possibility? And it became a bit of a focus once I secured my England place. So that's how I got in. I managed to get into, I think at one point I was number 14, but then dropped to number 17 in the world when they had the cut-off. So I went over there, and I suppose one of the reasons I wanted to do it was that the Americans come over in large numbers to play our British seniors, and they have a phenomenal success rate. If you look at the last 10 championships, I think they've won 8 out of the last 10. And there's this aura about how good the Americans are. And I suppose myself and one or two others, particularly Rupert, just wanted to see, can we test ourselves potentially against the best players? We have some fantastic players in Europe who are every bit as good as those Americans, we think, but let's go and test it. So I went over there and I did my little bit. I managed to get to the quarterfinals, and on the way to doing so, I managed to beat Gene Elliott, who has been the world #1 senior for quite some time. In the last 16, in the last 32. In the last 16, I beat Mike McCoy, who won the British seniors. So I think it showed that, some of us can go over there and we're on our day with our A game. We can compete with the Americans, and it was nice to see. And I got, as I said, I got a lot of support from all my European friends, and it showed them what can be done.
Did it prove something to yourself? You said you went out there almost on a mission just to see, could you compete against the Americans on their home turf? Did you learn a lot about yourself that week? Did you prove a bit to others, perhaps?
I think I did, yeah. Yeah, I think, I had done quite well this season. I won the Order of Merit. I'm a decent golfer. Am I as good as some of the other people out there as the best ones? Then possibly I proved to myself that I could certainly compete with them. Obviously, you have to have your day, and I had some good days over there. But yeah, it proved to me that I gave me a bit of confidence. That's what it did. A bit of belief.
Did you enjoy the whole experience? Because it is different. Whenever you tee it up in a foreign country, it is slightly different to being on home soil. Was there things that took you by surprise? Things that took you out of your comfort zone? Things you really enjoyed about that American trip?
England always put on a great show when they're organising a tournament. England golf do a fantastic job, closely followed by Scottish golf. I must say they do also do a very good job. The R&A, because it's the British, is maybe just another level up. They do a brilliant job, and they have a lot of personnel on the ground. The way the USGA run an event is unbelievable. The support we got from the Catanset Golf Club was unbelievable. And with all due respect to everybody else, it was just another level up. It was quite phenomenal. And I urge anybody who thinks they have an opportunity to go and play in a USGA event to go and do so. It really is quite significant. The practice facilities, the names on the practice ground where you've got your own practice area with your name on it. There were TV crews there. There was all sorts. There was significant support from the local members. It was just an incredible experience. It really was. And the golf course itself was absolutely stunning.
Now, the season isn't over for you. You've been selected along with a couple of England colleagues for the Concession Cup at Valderrama in November. For those people who are not aware of this tournament, Stephen, can you just paint a picture of it for us, the backdrop to it, how the trophy came about, and what it means to be selected?
Okay, the name came about from the concession that Jack Nicklaus and Tony Jacklin had in the Ryder Cup many years ago in the mid-70s, and it was really pushed by the American side to have a trophy in its honour for amateurs. It did get some support from Jack Nicklaus on previous occasions, and it's played biannually. Obviously, it's skipped because of COVID, and for the first time now, it's normally played at the Concession Golf Course in America, aptly named after obviously the concession itself. And this time around, the Europe are hosting it. So for the first time, Europe have participants. Normally, it's GB&I versus Americans. The results were a little bit one-sided, so they've obviously expanded it now to be more inclusive, I think. Europeans are involved. We've got 6 mid-am players over 25. We've got the 2 young Irish lads that managed to get through to the mid-amateur final in our team. And as you alluded to, we've got 6 seniors, 3 of which are English guys, Trevor Foster, Rupert Kellogg and myself. We have a German, we have a Jody Flanagan, the former Walker Cup player from Ireland, and we have Mateus from Sweden. So it's going to be a lot of fun, yeah. 3 days of strong competitive golf against Americans.
And Valderrama's quite a tasty golf course as well. Quite long as well. Have you been in the gym flexing those muscles ready for Valderrama?
Well, I suppose, it's 2 months away, so I am trying to do a little bit to make myself prepared. But I'm just still playing a bit of golf and not trying to change too many things. You can go a bit mad and maybe get injured, which you don't want to do. So yeah, I'm doing a little bit, but I'm not going mad.
Stephen, golf plays such an important part in all our lives, but in terms of your life, how important has golf been in just shaping your destiny, if you like?
I mean, it's been very, very important. I've been very fortunate. When I was 18 years of age, I was supposed to be studying for my A-levels, and I was probably the most studious student you'd ever come across. And I was on the golf course. I realised it was going to chuck it down with rain. I need to get back to try and do some revision. And I joined a couple of guys on the 15th hole, and I said, "Do you mind if I come in with you guys and play the last few holes? Looks like it's going to rain." And halfway down the fairway, after I just rifled this ball down the middle of the fairway, the guy says, one of the chaps said, "Are you going to be a golf pro?" And I said, "No, I've got no interest in being a golf pro. I want to get into the city. I want to make as much money as I possibly can. I'm going to be a trader. That's what I'm going to be. I've done a bit of research. I want to be a bond trader or a currency trader or an options trader." Oh, he said, "This could be your lucky day." I said, "Why is that?" He said, "I'm the personnel manager of the largest Canadian merchant bank in the city." He said, "We only normally take graduates on our training program." He said, "But my MD is an absolute golf fanatic. And if you send your CV in, I'll put a good word in and see what I can do." So I sent my CV in. I get a call from the bank. "Please come in for an interview." Now, this is how naive I was at the time. I went to buy and bought a 3-piece suit. I wore my dad's sheepskin coat. I got on the train in Milton Keynes to commute down with other commuters into the city. And initially, I couldn't work out why everybody was staring at me. And I suddenly realised that I looked like a cross between Del Boy and the Artful Dodger. Like an absolute wally. So I realised that I ought to ditch the sheepskin coat and the waistcoat because nobody else was wearing that on the train. I went in for the interview. We talked extensively about golf, and obviously I told him how clever I was going to be, and that it's not necessary to have a first-class honours degree from Oxford in economics. Why don't you give a young lad an opportunity, which he did. So he said, "What are you doing on the 27th of June?" So at the day we didn't have iPads or iPhones, so I just quickly checked my diary. I said, "Well, my exams finish on the 25th of June. I suppose I'm looking for a job." And I thought he was going to say, "Do you want to go into golf?" He said, "Well, that's the day you start with us then." So that's where I started in this Canadian merchant bank. And within 12 months later, I was literally trading hundreds of millions of dollars a day of Eurobonds on their dollar account. And then, that was my springboard into a meat trading business, which I then started with my father some years later, which was successful and gave me opportunities at the age of 50 to play extensively on the senior circuit. So I've been very fortunate. It brought a lot to my life. It really has.
In terms of what you've still to achieve in your golfing career, Stephen, I mean, again, we mentioned it earlier that you've had almost like a lease of life in the senior circuit, and there's been doors opening up for you that perhaps you didn't realise were there. So looking forward, what do you hope for 23 and beyond? What are your goals as a senior golfer now?
What I want to tick off, what I'd love to be able to do, is to get a silver medal. I'm very envious of Trevor Foster and my good friend John Kemp, who've got one of those. That would be great fun to play in a senior open and to get through 4 rounds as a leading amateur. That would be something I'd really love to do. I'd love to win some more national titles. I'd love to do very well in America again, and maybe get a little bit further if I possibly can. Now I know that I can almost compete. Keep playing for England if I possibly can for the next few years. I'll never overtake Ian Atto, who's been doing it for 6 or 7 years, I don't think, but try and stay in England teams, try and stay fit, try and make more new friends and enjoy myself, basically.
If you're travelling the world now, you're broadening your horizons and coming against different competitors, so that's only going to bring out the best in you, I would expect.
I think so, yeah. Yeah, definitely, yeah. I enjoy the competition, I enjoy meeting new people, playing different venues. I've been very fortunate to play some fabulous courses around the world, and it's very exciting.
Well, as you travel around the world, Stephen, please don't forget your friends at England Golf. Continue to play in our events, continue to win titles, and we look forward to seeing you again on the circuit in 23.
I'll do the same. Many thanks, Ian. All the best. Thank you, indeed. Thank you, Tom.
Thanks to Stephen for his time, and good luck to him, Trevor Foster and Rupert Kellock at the Concession Cup in Spain next month. Of course, the hard work never stops during the winter, and Stephen tells me he's working with Scots amateur golfer Paul Moultrie and his company on enhancing the skills of mindset and emotional resilience ahead of the 2023 season. Now, let's find out the latest news from around England golf. 3 England squads have been named in the last month for the 2023 season. The boys, girls and women's squads feature the cream of English amateur talent in all 3 categories. Women's amateur champion Jess Baker is back in the women's squad for next year. Fraser Jones and Jack Lee are the new names in the boys' squad, while English girls champion Sophia Fulbrook is called up to the girls' setup. Full details on all 3 squads can be found on our website, that's englandgolf.org. England's mixed under-16 team took to the links at Royal Birkdale earlier this month for the annual challenge match with Ireland and completed a comprehensive win. The team, featuring 6 boys and 6 girls, beat their Irish rivals 21.5, 8.5 over the world-famous Southport links. Special mention for Imogen Williamson, Nellie Ong, Chloe Tarbard and Chris Kim for a 100% winning record over the 2 days of competition, and sincere thanks to Royal Birkdale for welcoming the players to such an iconic venue. There was a Northern double in the final 2 county finals of the season. Lancashire won the men's title at Royal Norwich, and Yorkshire pulled off a success in the senior men's competition at Rothley Park. Lancashire edged out Gloucestershire in a final day shootout, while Yorkshire pipped Wiltshire, performing in their first ever finals, to the glory at Rothley. Well done to both teams. Stoneham Golf Club, host to the recent women's county finals, has become the 500th English club to sign up to the R&A's Women in Golf Charter. For more details on how your club or county can commit to positive change on and off the course for women, check out the details in the support section of the England Golf website. And finally, well done to England Golf's Tony Zverblis for her role in helping 7 young Ukrainians come to the UK for a golfing trip of a lifetime. Along with other members of an R&A Women in Leadership group and their Project Ukraine initiative, Tony, who's the Participation and Development Campaigns Manager at England Golf, helped host the kids for a coaching week in Scotland, rounded off by a trip to the Dunhill links at St Andrews and a meeting with Rory McIlroy. Okay, so that's the latest news. Now let's hear from our final guest. Rosemary Reed is the perfect woman to talk to if you doubt that golf is a game for all ages. Rosemary started playing as a teenager and earlier this month, at the age of 87, won the Central English Mixed Foursomes title alongside playing partner Steve Toyne. To make the story even more remarkable, Rosemary did it playing 7 rounds of golf in 4 days. And the day after winning, she celebrated by, well, what else would you do? Head to Seacroft near Skegness for another round of golf. Her exploits earned Rosemary national newspaper coverage and took her by surprise, as I discovered when I met her for a natter and a musical treat. Rosemary, thank you for taking the time to have this conversation with me. I feel as if I'm in the presence of golfing greatness.
Oh, I wouldn't say that.
given your recent exploits.
Oh, well.
For people who don't know, you won the Central England Mixed Foursome with your playing partner, Steve Toyne. Steve doesn't get a lot of the credit, as you were saying to me earlier, but he was part of the team.
Oh, yes.
But everybody has focused on the fact that you've won this event for the 4th time now.
Yes.
And is it 65 years since you first played in this event?
1961, my husband and I played in it. We just had our honeymoon at St Andrews. And then we won it again in 84 and 85 when it was our silver wedding, which was nice.
You've created a lot of headlines, Rosemary, in the last few weeks because, if you don't mind me saying, you're 87 years young, not old, and to win such a prestigious title at that age has created a bit of a stir. What have you made of it all?
Do you know, it didn't hit me till Wednesday. It was weird, really, because folks, the various messages I've had and folks kept coming up, and the support I've had from the golf club has been, well, quite overwhelming, really. I was very surprised. And then suddenly on Wednesday, I thought, well, it's meant a lot the last 3 times we've won it, and suddenly it sort of started to hit me, really. But I just love it at Woodhall. I've lived here now for 9 years, and I've known it all my life. I first played here in 1952 when I had no interest in golf, but my father could obviously see a bit of something, and they had the British girls here, and I had 5 clubs in a little bag. I had a whippy spoon, very whippy. I had a 5-iron, a 7-iron, something to get out of bunkers, and a putter. And in my ignorance, I drove into the cross bunkers on the 9th. I mean, I could always hit a ball quite well. And I just didn't play anymore. As I say, I played a lot of tennis. And then the next year it was at Stoke Poges in Buckinghamshire, and I played there, and it was the same. I was 36 handicap. And then I studied music. I went to the Royal College of Music, and I had a year at home after I left school before I went, because obviously, well, I was going to be a nurse actually, and well, they said at school I should do something with my voice. Suddenly sounded better than emptying bedpans. So I had a year at home studying music, and that's when I got down to my golf, because there was nothing else to do in Skegness. And I got my handicap down to 7 and I started one year by the next year. And I played, went up to Scotland to play in the Girls' Championship. And I was chosen for the junior international team that year. We played against Scotland. And then I played again against the British boys the following year. By that time, well, I went to the college in September, and it must have been that year, 54, I think, when they took a touring team to Australia and New Zealand. I think it was for 5 weeks, and I turned it down. As you can imagine, music takes a lot of practice, and it is my first love, and I never regretted it, never. But obviously I enjoy playing golf, but people think I'm competitive, but I just enjoy hitting a ball. You give me a wall, a tennis racket and a ball, I'm quite happy.
Sure.
But
I think the thing that's resonated with a lot of people, Rosemary, is the fact that people say that golf is a game for all ages, but you're actually proving it. You're competing against much younger men and women in this mixed foursomes event, and yet you and Steve prevailed. And again, without giving his age away, but the mathematicians can maybe work it out. I think the combined age was 151 years.
It was, yes. Yes.
Which is quite something, is it not?
Yes. We gelled. I have to say that. We had some big wins, and I managed to keep him out of the bunkers. And I think out of the 54 drives, I think I hit 4 bad ones. So it sort of kept us going. And if I just kept it up the middle, he did the rest. I mean, he really was very special. So
it can be quite a difficult championship to win, regardless of your age, because I think you played 7 rounds in 4 days. 5
yes,
days?
It used to be more actually. They've cut it down a day. It used to be you played 1 Thursday, 2 Friday, or the other way round. It went on till Sunday. Now they just play 2 rounds Thursday. So I think it's 1 round less.
How did you keep going though? By Sunday, were you not tired? I mean,
No.
I played golf 2 days in a row, and the third day I got out of bed like the Tin Man.
Well, when I was living in Leicestershire, I played at Willersley Park Golf Club, which is a lovely parkland course at Ashby-de-la-Zouch, and it was hilly. And I think that, and all the sport I played as a youngster, I think it's given me strong legs. I can honestly say I didn't feel tired at all. And then I went to Seacroft on Monday and played in a friendly match.
I saw that. I mean, you've played all these competitive rounds. You've won the trophy on the Sunday, and the first thing you do on the Monday is head off for another 18 holes.
Well, I just keep going. I don't know why. I'm lucky. I've been very lucky in my life. I've got a wonderful family that look after me. I had a wonderful hobby and a wonderful career. And, you've got to be lucky. And touch wood, apart from a couple of bops on my feet and bits and bobs, I've been fit. So that's made such a difference. You never know what's round the corner. So I do think I'm very lucky. And I've got a lot of lovely friends. At Woodall, certainly, everybody is so friendly. We're a lovely ladies section, and it's just good fun.
You mentioned the fact that you have such good fun, and it's a good going social section, if you like, at the club as well. Is that what keeps you enjoying the game so much? Is it as much the social side as the physical activity of getting out on the golf course? Psychologically, it's good for anyone who plays the game.
We don't have a tremendous social life here, but whenever you go up, if you go up, if I perhaps going shopping, I perhaps call in for a coffee, there's always somebody you can join. I'm not a drinker. I don't drink at all. And I don't know whether that's helped or not. But,
what did you fill the trophy with, Rosemary? Was it tea or orange squash?
I'll be quite honest. When you receive it, they clap you out. And then you come back in again. We left them on the table. They're quite valuable trophies. I mean, when we first won them, I'd got the county championship trophy as well, and somebody came to the door offering security systems, so we had one. It's quite a responsibility when you've got these trophies. And now I think they keep them all in the cabinet at the golf
under
club.
lock and key. Yeah. Do you remember when you first picked up a golf club? You mentioned your father was keen in the sport. Was it him that got you involved?
Yes, it was really. As I say, we lived virtually on the course. My parents both played and my brother played. Of course, I was born in the war, so we didn't... I was probably about 12 when I first whacked a ball. And then I suppose by the time I was 14, 15, I sort of hit it reasonably well. And then after I left school, as I say, I had this year at home when I've never really been a practicer. I find it boring. I shouldn't say that, should I? But I played a lot, obviously, which seemed to help. But I was lucky. I won the Lincolnshire Ladies Championship 59, 60 and 61. And then I moved to Leicestershire and I won that in 67, 68, 78, 81, 83 and 90. So I was still sort of going in my 50s. But as I say, I've been lucky.
And still going into your 9th decade as well. I know you're 87, but it is your 9th decade.
Well, yeah.
Do you see yourself as an inspiration? Because your story has been in the Daily Telegraph, it's been in Women in Golf magazine, it's been all over the internet. Do you see yourself as an inspirational character that other people can draw hope from?
About it. I mean, if this is what 87 feels like, it's great. I honestly never gave that a thought until it's been mentioned just recently. So, yeah, strange, really. But, you never know what's round the corner. I like to keep going.
Are you going to be defending your title 2023? Is that the plan? You and Steve going to team up again?
Well, he did mention it, and I said, well, I hope I'm still able to. You don't know. But,
I'm sure
I'd like to think so. There we go.
And you still play off, is it a handicap index of 18,
I've gone up
19?
to 19 now, and it'll probably go up again after today. I think it was a bit after the Lord Mayor's show today. But my handicap's gone up since I've been here. I went back to Willersley about a month ago, actually, and knocked 0.2 off, and then I came back here on the Thursday and put 0.4 back on. They're very exacting golf courses, but just lovely. I love them.
What would you say, Rosemary, to any young girl or young woman who's thinking about taking up golf? Clearly, it's not the only thing in your life. You've talked about your music and your family and many other things. But it is a sport that people can draw a lot from, young women in particular, because there's this drive to try and get rid of the inequality in the game, if you like, because there's more men than women play the sport.
I know when I didn't particularly want my children to play, but they had to be honest, they had to dress properly, and they had to behave themselves. And the discipline of this is excellent for youngsters. And, you know, they can play other sports as well as I did. And it's a difficult game. And I think it's very character forming, really. So, yes, I would recommend it to anybody. People think it's a very expensive game. It's as expensive as you want to make it. I don't drink and I don't smoke. And if you put the cost of those two together, it more than pays for your golf. So I don't think people... And there's a lot of help given to juniors now. The county are very good with them. But I was the only junior that played, so I didn't ever have that. Well, it wasn't around. And I had a lot of coaching when I was young. Father insisted on that. I used to go to North Shore at Skegness for that. But it's a very enjoyable game, and it's one you can play as long as you can walk around. That's the good thing about it.
Rosemary, I've enjoyed our chat. I see the piano in the hallway there. Are you a pianist? Can you play a bit?
Are you sure?
Come on, give us a tune. Well, while Rosemary plays away in the background, just time to thank her, my other guests Rob Watts and Stephen Jensen, and to you for listening to our little podcast. Remember to follow all the latest in amateur golf at the England Golf website, and while you're there, why not sign up to become an England Golf member and receive our regular newsletters. Follow us also on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook and LinkedIn if you want all bases covered. Jenna Lee Portis once again takes the credit for producing the podcast, and as Rosemary tinkles the ivories, there's just time to say enjoy your golf. Till the next time, bye for now. Bravo, well played, Rosemary. Excellent.